In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Okay, so I am going to make available to you the Classkick that I set up for us. So if you'll go to the Classkick app on your iPad, you're going to basically be experiencing what the students will go through when they're completing a Classkick for you. Okay, so this is exactly how I would do quizzes with my kids. I'd have them start on a Zoom meeting so that I could take attendance, just check in with them, kind of get them in the frame of mind to be, taking an assessment. And then I would say, okay, I'm going to give you the code and, let's go ahead and get started. So the code that you're putting in is XHXEMM. Okay, and so what I often did would, I would have taken a picture of the code and either read it to them or showed it to them. So there's a link you can also share if you want.
So Lisa, is this on our iPad?
On your iPad, open the Classkick app. You don't even have to, all you have to have is it download on your iPad. You don't even have to log in or anything.
I'm saying class code was not found. What was it again?
XHXEMM.
That would be the problem. I put it in.
You're a numbers guy, Mike, not a letters.
Yeah, I thought you said EMN, not EMM.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So what I'm going to do is share my screen so that you can see what the teacher sees as students are doing the activity. And I'm going to have to keep letting people in here. Got some of you jumping in from Mr. Barlow's session. Okay, so a second here. So if you will go ahead and let's see, looks like I've got only 4 of you are actually on. Okay, I see Lisa Ford, I see Marianne, I see Mike, Pete, Rhea, and John Strife.
Lisa, I'm sorry, I don't have my iPad right here. Can I just watch?
You could probably also join on your laptop. I haven't really had students join on their on another device without using the app. Like I really haven't had them go through the website, but if you want to, you could also do it on your phone. If you want to just go to classkick.com and then see if you can join that way, that's also an option. But if you just want to watch, that's fine too. Okay, so on my screen here, you should be able to see kind of what I'm seeing. So I joined this activity earlier. And so as you might see here, I have done part of the activity that's self-graded. So I answered the multiple choice question and I answered the letter here. So I have right now a 3 out of 7 point grade. But as you're writing, as you're working, I'm not really sure why Lisa Ford said that Mike Miller's her favorite cartoon character, but we'll go with that. Okay, so I can jump to any person and kind of see what they're doing currently. So after the student has opened the assignment, like I'm on Melinda Bundy's screen and I can see what she's writing now. And so I'm able to jump in and say, you know, okay, Foghorn Leghorn. I'm going to give him a sticker. This is sort of hard because I have way too many things open here with Zoom. Fantastic. So I have a sticker set up where, you know, I can put it, this is kind of a crowded assignment, but I can put stickers on there. We can also type on assessments. So if you, if I look at Rhea is doing a great job. She answered correctly. So if I wanted to give her a little note. Oh, sorry. You can also put text notes to students. Okay. If a student has a question, you're able to raise your hand. So are you guys able to see where the hand raising little button is? Yeah. So when someone raises their hand, they can either ask, a student can ask for help or they can ask for a check. And so if I see that Marianne White has her help request for problem number 1, then that brings up a chat for us. And I can say, hi, Marianne, how can I help? So if they would prefer to chat that way, like if they need to get your attention right away, then, you know, that will call attention. And then you'll see, the teacher will see on their screen the little hand raised to be able to tell that that a student had a question. Now there, you could either, when you're the teacher assigning the Classkick, you can either be on your laptop grading or you can be on your iPad grading. There's kind of benefits one way or another. But when I'm making Classkicks, I think it's a lot easier to actually create the Classkick on your laptop. So you can create it on your iPad too, but my preference is probably to do it on my laptop. Okay, so as you see there, right now I'm looking at view all slides. Now I'm gonna pull up the option of view slide 1. So if I wanted to be able to grade slide 1, you know, all at one time, I can scroll down through and see pretty easily that Irene named Pluto and Melinda named Daffy Duck, Lisa named Mike Miller, Mike named Bugs Bunny. So I can kind of see everybody's first page all at one time. This was especially helpful. I would like everyone to make sure that you answer question 2, because my experience with the multiple choice is that sometimes the students, so let me see what Mike Miller did here. So sometimes the students will just take the pen and fill in the letter, but in order for it to actually grade the question, the student needs to use the pointer and click what their answer is. Okay, so I had to kind of monitor the first time that I did multiple choice. I just kind of monitored them and I went back and said, okay, wait a minute, Cole, make sure that you know, select, use the pointer to select it. And then they'll be like, oh, okay, you know, I see now that it fills in. So on the student's end, because of how I have it set up, you don't see whether your answers are correct or not, but I do. So as you're taking it, I am seeing your score. Now, if you want this to be for practice and you want the students to be able to see their score, you can make it that available to them. But right now, you're only seeing a 2 out of 7 or a 3 out of 7 because there are questions that are not being self-graded. So if I look at Cole's assignment here, Batman, I would have to grade myself and say, okay, that's going to be a 1-point question. And then he got his 2 points there, his 1 point there. That's what, 4. And then 3 points for the clip here. So then once I go through and grade it, then I could come up here and give him full credit. So now he has a 7 out of 7 or he has a 5 out of 7 or whatever. Okay, but the self-graded portion would be for multiple choice or the fill in the blank kind of problems. If you did not do number 4 yet, I'm going to kind of pull up what happens with that. So you have the option of making a recording for part of the question for the students, but then also for you to record.
You're going to make a short audio recording using the microphone on the toolbar at the top of the page. Please say in 1 or 2 sentences why you're interested in learning about Classkick today.
Okay, and so that was my question that you would be answering. When you are answering it, let me go back to the assignment here. When you're answering it, the way that you answer an audio clip is to use a little microphone here. Okay, so you would just simply click the microphone and it'll bring up the little box over here on the side. You'll start recording, say, whatever you want to say, and then it creates a little recording for you. So that means the students can record. I did that on one of the assessments. I had the students explain as they were doing their problem. It was a kind of a lengthy trig problem they were working out. So I told them to solve it and then give me like I think I said less than 3 minutes or something, explain their thought process. And I was hoping that would help them maybe catch a mistake they made, but also so that I could more easily follow their work. If they made a mistake, I could understand what they were doing. So it is a little bit time intensive to listen to those clips. So I would encourage you not to make an entire assignment with them recording things, but I think it's helpful, in some situations. Okay, so let me just ask quickly, do you have any questions about sort of, how the students experience it or any questions that have come up so far? I'm going to walk you through setting one up in a minute here. Lisa Ford, you have the grandbaby. Which one is this?
Hello, hello.
This is Chelsea. This is GT. And I know why God did not give 1-year-olds to 61-year-old women.
It's just like during e-learning. Okay. So right now, what I'd recommend you do is go to Classkick on your laptop, and we're going to make an assignment. Now, again, if you just want to watch me, that's fine too. You can play with it later. I will be making this video available. There are also, Classkick has videos available, and there are things you can do to work your way through it. It's really not difficult. There's just a few key things that you want to make sure you really pay attention to. Okay, so
Lisa,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
If I go to Classkick on my laptop, will I still be able to watch the Zoom?
Yes, you just might have to be like moving back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah, so like a different tab or whatever. Classkick works best in Chrome. So in case
I'll just watch you and then I'll come bother you later when I don't.
I agree with you, Mike.
I almost didn't come today because I know I'm going to be bothering her later anyway.
So we're a pro school, which they technology just purchased our renewal for next year. And that means that we have some additional features that you wouldn't have if you're on the basic version. If you've never used Classkick before, you're probably looking at the basic version right now. And so there might be some things that I'm seeing that you aren't seeing. But what will happen is they'll kind of like give us the code to join. And then once you do that, you have some more features. One of those features is that without the pro version, you're limited to 20 assessments. And so if you want to create a new one, you have to delete something old. With the pro version, you can have as many as you want. So you can see I've got some folders here with some of the things from e-learning, and then a few other things I did along the way. But as far as the rosters go, I believe that because we're a pro school, I know the students get these portfolios, which I think means that our rosters will actually be imported for us. I don't think that we're going to have to set up our rosters. Maybe the students, once they join one of them, they'll be joined to your class. I'm not really sure, but it should be simpler. And I'm not really going to go into that because I don't know the details of it, but it should be simpler by the fact that we're a pro school now. So I have different rosters set up. If you have to type in your students' names, you can do that. I just went through and typed in my kids and gave them like their class kicks. So now that we have done the professional development roster, when I look at my roster, now I've got everybody here who logged into my Classkick assignment. I have all of you on that roster now. Okay, so to create a new Classkick, so if you go to assignments, there's a plus sign in the upper right corner. That green plus sign is how you actually create an assignment. And there's a couple of ways you can do that. So first of all, you can do it on your iPad. So if you prefer taking screenshots and posting things in like that on your iPad, that's fine. I think most of us are probably gonna be a little bit more comfortable doing it on our laptop. But you can also, if you want to, and I've done this as well, if you want to make a Word document on your laptop and then just literally like upload that, like actually I think you just save it as a PDF and then upload it, you can do it kind of all at one time, and it will create every slide on the assignment will have a different page of the PDF. And so that's a quick way to get it, the problem or the questions there without having to type them in on the Classkick assignment. Okay, if you want to go ahead and just make a new blank assignment, I'm actually going to go back to the assessment that we had open a minute ago, just because I want to show you on slide 2 here. So I'm editing the Classkick that you were just working on a minute ago. I added a picture, and I just wanted to make sure you kind of understand that you can move items around. You can also change sizes. So if you want to change the size of a picture, you click on it and you'll get these little green buttons in the corner and you can change it. Now the way you add a picture is a little camera up here. Okay, so when you add an image, you have the choice of either using the camera and taking a picture that way, or pulling one in from your computer. So if you wanted to add an actual photo or even a screenshot, you know, little JPEG or whatever, you'll be able to add that as well. Okay, so for the assignment, just a few of the tool things that you want up here. You've got an undo and redo, just like you would normally be used to in any program. And you can like see things zooming out and zooming in also. Nothing too crazy there. This is your pointer if you're trying to select things. The pen option, you have the option, so if you scroll all the way over to the right, you have all these different colors. You also have all these different thicknesses. Okay, so the little pen is for writing. So if I want to write my name, okay, that's the pen. And if you're doing this on your iPad, obviously it's a little easier. You got a stylus on your iPad rather than on the computer. But sometimes I'll also write things on Notability and then just take screenshots of that and paste the screenshots. So when you're creating, it's whatever you think is easiest. The highlighter, again, you have different colors and you have different thicknesses. So if I want to make it really thick, I'm going to grab a green here. Okay, and there's our pen and our highlighter. Obviously the little eraser just erases it, so that'll erase anything that you touch. Now for the capital T, there's a text box. So like I wanted to type in, you know, cathedral PD session or whatever. That gives me a little text box. If I don't like it, I just trash it and start over again. Okay, but you're going to notice that my little box might look different than what yours would look like, because I have it set up. I have it set up where I've got a background chosen, and I can make the background any color I want. Okay, so there's the background, and I'm clicking on the text box. Okay, so I'm clicking on the text box, and that's why it's bringing up these options over here. So we've got the filling in the background of the text box. We've got the color of our text. So if you wanted to change, you would have to highlight it and change the color. Okay, and then if you want a box around it, a border around it, you can, mine was a black border, you can put no border, so just, you know, your preference. None of those things are necessary. If you don't want to use any of those, you can just make a white text box and just type it. So if you were to add a text box, that would be kind of how the default is. The default is going to be a black background, I mean a white background with black typing, and I think no border. So if you just wanted to type something, you know, like name, you can just type it like that, no problem. Okay, if you want to get fancy and add colors and stuff, then you have that option. Okay, you also are able, there's a little segment mark here. So if you wanted to draw like your name line or whatever, you can also draw using a little segment. Now what you might find helpful is you are also able to add links. So if, for example, you have like a little video you want to play, or maybe I've got a video lesson, like I'm just going to go grab my,
And then your long leg, we're multiplying by root 3. You could write that as 4/3.
let me stop that. Okay, so if you wanted to share a YouTube video, you could say, you know, here's the video. Paste in the URL, and then it will create the link. Okay, so a student, you know, you could have a Classkick where the little video clip or the lesson or whatever you want it to be could be right there. And they can do the same thing. They can also post clips, post links to videos. So if you wanted them to go find something and post it, they could also do that. Then I talked about the pictures a minute ago. You can either use the camera or you can upload. And again, the thing about the pictures, just make sure you understand that with a picture, if you click it, you are able to resize it. Okay, when you first import it, it might show up like, you know, right in the middle of the page, like crazy big. So just grab it, move it around, and you can change the size of it. Okay, that's the same idea as when you copy and paste. So if, let's say I was doing a worksheet and I have a problem here that I want to use, I could just copy that problem, or again, it could be whatever. If it's not math, you know, it could be a diagram or whatever. And then I just go back to the Classkick and I hit Command V to paste. And again, it's going to show up in the middle. You know, it'll look weird. Like, why do I want that to be there? And you can just move it out of the way, click on it, and you can shrink it down and put it wherever you want it to be. Okay, so when you go, and again, if I do a little screenshot here, when I go back to Classkick, it doesn't look like, if I'm clicking right now, it doesn't look like it's going to do anything. But just rest assured, you hit, you know, paste, and it really does show up there. No, I don't want this, so I'm going to trash it. Let me get it out of the way. All right, our next tools, that's our little microphone to add audio. Like I said, you can make a little clip. You can also ask the students to record themselves so they can, you know, answer something, or they can give an explanation for something. They can also ask questions that way if you want, you know, to be discussing with them rather than on the typing of the chat feature. You can also, you know, do audio. Okay, as far as the different kinds of questions, so this little, this one right here, add a manipulative, I have not done before, and I think it's cool, and I think that there's a lot of situations where that could be helpful, but you do have to like have a bunch of images that you pull into the Classkick. So I'm not sure if Classkick is the best way to do this, because Schoology assessments also have moving and like drag and drop, and other quizzes and things have drag and drop. So I'm not sure if Classkick is the easiest, but I haven't used it, so I'm not really sure. The second one here is a fill in the blank. And so that is what you saw, the question about which of those superheroes was female. That was a fill in the blank. And so when you, what I would do is type in a text box. You know, I was like asking you whatever the question is, and then the text box can be placed, shrink this down a little bit. The text box can be placed so that the students understand they have to type in that little box, and that way it will grade it by its own, you know, on its own. Now, what you do as the teacher creating the Classkick is you'll come over here and edit the fill in the blank. So we're gonna say what acceptable answers we'll take. So acceptable answer 1 is yes. Oops, sorry, yes. Acceptable answer 2 is yeah. Acceptable answer 3 is yeah. So you're trying to guess what the student will answer so that it will correctly grade it. Now, if it incorrectly grades it, you can, of course, always go back and just give them credit. But you also want to put the points there, and that way when it grades it, it will also incorporate the points, and you don't have to mess with that. Okay, so that was this one right here is the fill in the blank. Okay, what I did quite a bit was multiple choice. So multiple choice will also self-grade. Now, the thing that I love about Classkick with multiple choice is that the kids can show their work on their iPad. So that's really helpful for math, for world languages, for science, but also anything you want them to be able to write an explanation to. So it's nice that it will grade it for you, but you also have the possibility of seeing their thought process. And if they get it wrong, you can go back and give them partial credit, or you can be like, I had quite a few students, believe it or not, would choose the wrong answer, even though their work would say, okay, I'm going to answer E, then they would go down and click the wrong letter. So I would be like, okay, they had it right. They just picked the wrong thing. So you can go back and catch those as well. Okay, so for the multiple choice, I'm going to say add a multiple choice. And I am going to make it a 2-point question. Sorry, it's not one to cooperate with me here. Okay, I don't know why, but it wouldn't let me say how many points it was. Normally I can type in there how many points I want it to be. Okay, so when you save it, it makes this little box here. And so again, you can type in right here if you want to type in the questions yourself. You can make these boxes as small or big as you want. And again, you can use different backgrounds or put the border around it or not, but you can type in your question. And then again, they will just go and select. So you're gonna, ask them to answer the question and then bubble in their letter there. And again, while they're taking it, you can watch and make sure that they understand the first time through that they have to actually use the cursor and select the correct answer. But then when they answer it correctly, it will give the point value. It'll add it onto their grade. And if they get it wrong, it will not give them the points, and it'll show you that it was marked incorrect, and you can go back and then look at their work. Okay, so multiple choice questions are really nice because it'll self-grade, but then also you can see their work as well. Okay, the star at the top is sticker, and there are some default stickers. I know I added some, so I'm not sure which ones were there originally, but you can add a new sticker and you can choose whatever image you want it to be. Okay, I'm gonna make one that's a bear that says, "Good afternoon." And then when you're grading, if there's something that you're gonna have to kind of be telling them over and over again, you can have that sticker and stamp it, so that you don't have to type it over every time. Now, I also just realized yesterday that you can give points to the stickers. So if you want to be able to grade a problem without having to go up and type in the number of points, you can put the number of points on it as well and say, okay, whenever I use the sticker, it's going to be 1 point. And then when I go and choose the bear and I paste it on somebody's page, that will automatically give them a point. So that's kind of a nice feature. Okay, for lastly on the edit part, for background, you might have remember that I had put a background on my assignment that you did. And so when you click background, you'll see there are some different options. This is the one that I used on the assignment that you did for me. There's, a few different colors like that are borders. There's also a Venn diagram and a table kind of option if you wanted to use that. There's graph paper. Okay, so there's a bunch of different options, but of course you could use no background at all and just leave it a white background. If you want the whole page to be a color, I've done this as well to make it easier for me to grade. I made like page 1 blue and page 2 purple and page 3 pink, and that way I could jump back and forth easily and kind of make sure I was on the right page. Okay, so whatever background you want to use, or again, you can just use all white. Okay, so that is making an assignment. So once you have your assignment, and if you need to add more slides, you can just keep saying plus. This is on the edit page. Just keep adding however many pages, however many slides you need. Now we're going to go to assign. Okay, so up here at the top, I'm going to go to assign. This is what you would do after you have created the assessment and you're ready to assign it to your students. You'll see, hold on one second. So you'll see up here where it says assign that if you have already got a roster established, I can go ahead and assign it to a certain class. So these are the classes that I had from spring semester. So I've got my 4 honors classes in my academic class. and I could assign it to that particular group of students. So I could assign it to all my classes or just one of them or whatever. Okay, things you want to pay attention to. So on the assign page, if you have never, like if you're looking at a blank page there, you can go and create a roster to assign it to. Okay, I already had roster set up, but when I did it for the professional development, I just said, okay, let me name my roster, and I made that my teacher PD. So that was one that I just created right now for, you know, yesterday for this. So things that you want to pay attention to. Grades. That means while, and it'll tell you this, if you click on the little eye, it'll tell you what's happening. While the student is doing the assessment, they will see their grade. Now, I would not do this for an actual assessment. I might use it for a practice if I wanted them to be kind of seeing, you know, whether they're getting problems right as they were going or whatever. Okay, but grades I usually will leave off because I don't want the students to know if they've gotten it right or not as they're taking it, or also to be able to tell, you know, other students who are working on it. Helpers. Helpers is good if you want to allow students to work together, but most of the time you're probably going to want to leave the helpers off. So helpers means that anybody who was taking the assessment can go and help someone else. So I think if a student raises their hand, anybody else who's doing the assessment can go and help them. Now, obviously that could be good, you know, depending on the students that you're working with and how many students you're working with. But if this was an actual assessment, you wouldn't want to allow that, because then they can go and, you know, see each other's work and you know, help each other too much. Okay, so hide and lock. So before we started, I had this assessment hidden and locked. Hide means the students will not be able to see the assignment on their Classkick page. So if this is a quiz that I don't want them to start ahead of time, I'm going to hide it so that they can't go and look at it. Because lock simply means that they won't be able to write on the document or do anything with it. Okay, so lock just means it's locked down. So they can still look at it, they just can't actually modify it in any way. So I would just recommend that when you're ready to, when you've written an assignment, you're going to put it on a roster, that you automatically just hide and lock and make sure helpers are turned off. That's what I would recommend. Okay, you'll see the class code right there, which is what I did. I gave you the code for you to access the document. If you click on it, it will also give you a link. If you would want to just paste that link into Schoology, the kids can click on it and it will take them there. Or again, they can just put in the code. Now again, my hope is that because we're a pro school now, the students will have their portfolios, means it'll keep all of their math stuff and all of their theology stuff and all of their science stuff in folders for them. And so they should be comfortable with using it, and it will be really easy for them to log in. Okay, and I showed you, so after you've written it and you've assigned it, I showed you what view work looks like. And again, what's going to happen is you'll see a list of all the students who have worked on the assessment. And you can also, you know, kind of see that some people never went to page 2, some people did. So right now, notice that there are black bars around. This means that these are all the people who are still active. Okay, so if you see right here, we've got Melinda, Mike, and Pete are still, you know, on the app. They're still there. So if I wanted to, you know, my kids are taking this assignment, doing this assignment, and then as they finish, they're kind of dropping off. If I don't want to have to keep scrolling up and down, like, you know, oh, who's still here? That's where the filters are helpful. So under filters, this is again on the view work page, you've got a few options here. One of them is filters. So filters is, these right here are probably the most helpful. Hide offline students, okay? That's what I just did. I just said, I don't want to see anybody who's not currently taking this assignment. So all the people that finished it and are gone, I don't need them clogging up my list here, okay? So that was hide offline students. Then you can also hide students who haven't started. So let's say you do your Zoom, you take attendance, you've got 2, 3, 4 kids, whatever, that aren't taking it right now. Maybe you knew that they were going to be not available, or maybe they're behind, or whatever the case is. you can hide students who haven't started it. I had an issue where I had some students that had multiple accounts. And so, I've got like Abby K here and Abigail here, and they're the same person. And I didn't want to be seeing all these blank, documents that the girl is actually working on the other one because she has 2 accounts. So that's what I would use, hide assignments who haven't started. And then if you wanted to, make it like more anonymous, you can also hide student names, which I guess if they're helping each other, maybe that's a good thing. So if you wanted to have helpers, Brave Bookworm could help Dazzling Dolphin and wouldn't feel, embarrassed that they're getting help from someone. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show all of the students. Now, under the View Work page filters, you can also change those settings that I showed you before. So allowing peer helpers would then make it so that people could help each other. Again, showing students their grades would be that as they answer the questions, they can tell whether they're right or not. Hide assignment on student dashboard and lock assignment. Now again, I always hide and lock before I start the assessment. So I have my students go into Zoom, I take attendance, make them show me their faces, and then I give them the code and I unhide it and I unlock the assignment. I would also recommend that if you have any students who are absent, that you hide it as soon as you get everybody started, because that way a student who has not already started the assignment won't even be able to log in. Now, occasionally Classkick would kick a student out to, like, I don't know, it just crashed, the app crashes on their iPad, and then they would just send me a remind message and say, my app just crashed. And it's saying it's hidden. So I'd be like, okay, let me unhide it for you. They get back in, I hide it again. Once the students are finished, after every student has finished, you want to lock the assignment, because then they won't be able to go back and change anything. So that will make it, if you only lock it, so if it's just locked and not hidden, that will make it so that they can still see the assignment, but they cannot modify it. If you want it to make not accessible at all, then you need to hide it, and then locking will also make it kind of locked in place. Okay, I'm throwing a lot at you. Is there anybody who has any questions that I can answer at this point?
Lisa, I have one question.
Yeah.
That lock and hide thing, can you do that for specific students only, or is it for everybody?
I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of. So
Okay.
I think it's for the particular assignment. So it would affect anybody who's on that roster. I don't think there's a way to do it for certain kids, which
Okay.
I thought was, not at best for when students are absent, but again, I would recommend that you let all the kids in and then you hide it until another student is, oh, I overslept. Let me start it now. Okay, here's the code. Now I'll unhide it for you.
Okay.
Are you going to send us like a document that kind of has the steps in it?
Sure.
For those of us who can't remember all this at once.
Yeah. So the email that I sent, had just the basics of how to download it and everything, but the intricacies of everything, I will share the recording with you, but I can also put something together in writing.
That would help me. I'm more of a visual looking at instructions.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, something else that I want to point out is, and this is available no matter which screen you're on, the 3 little dots up here where it says more options. This is helpful because it gives you things like sharing. So if I want to share this document, I can share a copy with colleagues. I can do other things, but this is basically and we use this, if I made a Classkick and I wanted to share it with another teacher, I would send an email to the teacher and say, okay, here's who I want to send it to. I'm going to send it to Marianne. And then that teacher can make a copy of it and use it themselves. So for us to be able to give common assessments, that's how we used it during e-learning. You can also, if you create a Classkick and then you want to be able to print it out, you can export the slides to PDF. So that would create a PDF document that you could then print, or if you just wanted to pull it in Notability or something, it would make a PDF, okay? Folders are available. I'm gonna go back to the home page. Anytime that you're in one of these pages, I'm actually in the assignment, I want to go back to my home page. There's a little home button up here in the upper left corner. Okay, and these are all my different assignments. If I wanted to add a folder, if I go, oh, I don't know if that's, yeah, there we go. The plus sign from the home button will also let you add a folder. And then you can, you know, keep things separated that way, which I found was really helpful. That was not something I used until when I was prepping for this session. Okay, so under, let me go back in here. So with the 3 little dots there, you can move the document. So if you want it to be in a different folder, you can select the folder to go to. Duplicate would be what I use if I'm going to make another version. So if I wanted to, you know, I have another quiz coming up, I've just made a copy of it. I just said duplicate, I went up here and I click duplicate, and then it will create a copy of it. So if I look back on the original home page, you can see that I've got you can see that I've got the original and I've got a copy there. So now I could go and edit my copy, and then, you know, it's the same basic layout of the quiz, but I can change problems, or I can change questions or answers, or whatever the case may be. Okay. Be really careful with delete. I'm going to go ahead and delete the copy there because I don't need it. When you delete an assignment, you'll also lose your students' work. So if you accidentally delete an assignment after you've given it to the students, like let's say it's a quiz, if you accidentally delete it, it's going to wipe out all their work as well. So you have to be really careful with deleting. It will warn you, okay, are you sure you want to delete it? And it'll tell you that it's going to delete their work, but just be careful about that. Okay. What I would recommend is that once a student has, once all of your students have finished a quiz, I would recommend to export their, oh, this doesn't have any, hold on a second here. I don't know if I have any. I think that maybe I have to be on that page. Yeah, okay. So I guess you have to be on the view work page in order to be able to do this, but I think it's helpful to export student work to PDF. When you do that, you can either individually export, or you can do all of them. So if I want the whole class, I can do export all, and it'll make a zip file with individual pages of the student's work, or you can do one individual one. So let me go ahead and export Lisa Ford's work. And that way, if you do that right when they finish, that way you don't have to worry about, like, if you accidentally delete something or you change something, that it'll make a difference, okay? But it will create a PDF, and then you'll be able to pull up, okay, here's Lisa Ford's work. So there's the 2 pages of the Classkick. Notice that even though I was editing this after you all had finished the assignment, when I edited my document, the teacher's document, it automatically, as in real time, it's editing the students' documents also. So if, for example, the students start working on something and you're like, oh darn, and this actually happened to me. There was a time where there was a multiple choice problem that the right answer was not there. You know, you can make a little note to the students and it'll show up on all of their screens right away. You know, whatever note you wanted to make to them. So even though Lisa Ford was looking at this and then she wasn't working on it, when I modified my copy, like my master, I guess you would say, it modified hers at the time. Something that kind of best practice that I always did, I always put like a, hey, you've reached the end, just to make sure that a student doesn't unintentionally skip over a page so they think they're finished. There's actually another page after that, and to kind of let them know, like, yeah, you really are done, so they're not worried, like, hey, what do I do now? This works sort of like Google in terms of it updates their work in real time. It also saves their work in real time. So sometimes they're going to be worried, like, how do I submit? It's like, well, you don't submit, it just saves it as you go. So they can literally, when they finish the assignment, they can just close their app and be done with it. So they don't have to worry about, submitting. Or if a student gets kicked out and they have to rejoin, it's going to save their work. So they're not going to start from scratch. So those are some things that kind of happened, as we were going through and we sort of experienced that with the students. Okay. Other questions, anything you want me to re-explain or go back to?
This is Hastings-Smith. I have a question.
Sure.
Is there like a timestamp that gets saved with students' work or not?
Marianne, help me. Do you remember there being a timestamp?
So if you are on your iPad, you can see it like when they last logged in. So it doesn't timestamp like the actual one, but like I could see like
that's right,
got on and left at like 4:11, or I could see like so and so hasn't logged in since March 25th. So
right.
You can't see like each individual assignment, but like I was able to keep track of it to see like if everyone completed like that day, or if there's like someone I was waiting on or someone who said they had a doctor's appointment, I could see that they weren't on and I could get them on another time. But
yes,
okay,
kind of, but not necessarily what you want, Rhea, but kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, when you're actually grading or like monitoring them when they're taking it, you can both log in on your iPad and on your laptop and kind of see the differences and how, kind of what you prefer. Because if you want to be able to write on their screens, it's probably easier to be on your iPad grading. But there's features on your iPad and there's features on your laptop that are different and that you might prefer one over another. I don't think either one of them is like way better than the other. I think either is different. Something else I don't know that I talked about on the view work page. I talked about viewing all slides. I think if you want to see everyone's slide 1, you can see everybody's slide 1 at once, and then everyone's slide 2 at once. And that's a little, when you're grading, that's a little, or even monitoring them, it's kind of a good thing to sort of see where everybody is and kind of what they've done along the way. You can also filter. So let me go back to view all slides. I don't think I mentioned this before. You can also change, like if right now we're looking at students, I think by, I don't know, let's see. So last name from A to Z. So you know how sometimes your roster is going to be alphabetical by last name, but when you're thinking about the students, you're really thinking about their first names. So I'd rather see, instead of seeing it like this, if I'm looking for Cole, I really don't want to think about what his last name is. I just want to think about Cole. So I go, okay, there's Cole, there's Irene, and so we're in alphabetical order. So sometimes that's helpful too. And again, you can filter off. I don't want to look at the students who are not currently online. And so I'm only seeing Mike and Pete, and all of these students are hidden.
That's a great point out, Lisa, because when I was putting in grades this past like semester, I didn't know that you could filter it that way. So I had to like, scroll up and down on like my screen because it didn't match my like grade book. And so like, it's really easy. And especially if we have a pro version, kids can maybe know or have like a more expectation of like, I always put first last name. Because I had kids start writing like goofy stuff or like their like a nickname or something. And I was like, who is this person? So that's really helpful. Thank you for sharing that.
And that's actually, you notice right here, Mike, M and P McCarthy, like people didn't even put, their names in the same format. And again, because the pro version, I'm pretty sure it's going to automatically put their names in, or at least we can all expect, this is going to be everyone's going to have the format the same. Okay. Any other questions? Or again, I'm happy to repeat anything if you need me to go back over something. A lot of it is really just playing around, just kind of seeing what you like, but you can do very basic. If you just create an assignment, again, you do the plus sign up here to create an assignment. If you wanted to create it from a PDF, you have a quiz you've already made. You can create it from the file. It will import the questions, and the whole thing can just be the students writing out their answers just like they were doing it on paper. So if you want a really pretty simple way to give an assessment online, that's what I would recommend. Just take whatever quiz or assessment you're planning on, you would give on paper, just create a file in Classkick, and then as they're taking it, you'll be able to watch them. And, you have to realize that whenever we're giving online assessments, we obviously cannot control if they're texting with their friends or if they're looking things up on another device or whatever. But I think there is something to be said for the fact that they see, as they're taking the assessment, they see when the teacher is there and they know that they checked in with you before you started, and it just kind of gives them that, feeling of your presence, and maybe that keeps them a little more honest. But yeah, I think it's beneficial even in the classroom, because some of us math teachers have used it in the classroom also. I know Jen Hollis was probably the first one from our department who was using it. She was actually using it in the classroom to be able to help students without having to run around the room and trying to get to everybody and answer their questions individually. She could just have them raising their hands on their screen, and then she was able to answer their questions, very quickly if they just needed a hint or needed to have something checked.
So Lisa, how you use this then, basically you have like a Zoom meeting or whatever, and then you tell, all right, now everybody go to their Classkick, and then you would monitor it from your iPad?
So
Did you monitor-
exactly what happened today is what I did. So I would give them on
the Zoom meeting?
Schoology and on Remind, I always start with the Zoom meeting so I could do attendance. I made them turn on their cameras, and I would go through and check off the roster, and anybody, I just kind of make a note of who wasn't there, and then I would know not to expect them. And then I would tell them stay on the Zoom meeting until I see that you're logged into Classkick. So I give them the code. They would get into Classkick. They'd start working. As soon as they start working, you can see that on your teacher, dashboard. And so I'd say, okay, got you. Mike, you can go ahead and leave the Zoom meeting. Pete, got you. You can leave the Zoom meeting, and just kind of check them in. And then I did not make them stay on the Zoom meeting the whole time. You could make them leave Zoom running in the background. So if they have questions, they could like talk to you, but everyone would hear them. So I just told my students that the only thing they should have open is Classkick. And if they need to ask me a question, then if they put up their hand and I miss it, or if I'm talking to somebody else or whatever, they can send me a remind and ask me. But as far as monitoring them, you can monitor them either on your iPad or on your computer. And again, it just looks a little different one way versus another. If you want to be able to write responses to them, then go on your iPad and you can use it just like you would in Notability. If you don't care about that, like I'm actually faster to type sometimes than I am to write out things. So sometimes I prefer to be on my computer, so that way I could, just type out whatever I needed to say for the chat or on their screen.
All righty. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Or again, I'm happy to repeat anything on the.
Mrs. Hastings-Smith, so
Yeah.
while a student is working, and say if they do not go offline at the end of the assignment and you want to lock the assignment, can you prevent them from making edits to it, or how does that work?
So if you hide it, and again, I generally would, as soon as everybody was in, I would just hide it right away. You don't want to lock it when they're working on it, because then they can't edit it. But if you hide it, then if they get kicked out or if they leave, they won't be able to even see it to be able to get back in. So
Okay.
when they type in the code, it will say that this assignment has been hidden by your teacher.
Okay.
And so, yeah, after, and even, again, if you're giving a quiz to multiple classes, and even if they're slightly different, if you don't want the students to be able to go back and see, because I might take the quiz, and then later that night, my friend's like, hey, what was on the quiz? And I think, oh, I should go and take screenshots of that and send it to my friend. Well, I'm not gonna be able to do that because my teacher, made it so it wasn't available. So I would try to hide it as soon as everybody is in. And then as they drop off, they have to get permission from you to get back in.
Okay. And as they're working on it, if they decide not to go offline, if they decide to still keep it active, if I lock it, that'll still prevent them from making edits.
Right. I think it might actually, if they're inactive for a certain period of time, it might actually kind of log them out. I'm not 100% sure because I never really asked anybody, but it seems like some students would close their app and some students would just, go and do something else, and it didn't really matter.
So if you
Yeah,
had a student that couldn't attend then did you make arrangements with them at another time somehow? Is that
Yeah,
what
there were a couple of times where, students didn't show up on time, like they missed the Zoom meeting. So after everybody was started, I would try to send them a reminder right away and be like, hey, you're supposed to be taking a quiz right now. Usually it was like alpha where they just overslept or whatever. And then if they didn't respond, then I would just email them or remind them and say, hey, let's set up a time later to do this. And then I would just open it up again for them later. If they join right then you just unhide it, give them the code, they can get in, you can hide it again.
Lisa, can they get the code from another student to get in?
The way
Is it
that
the same code?
So if you assign it to roster, so what I did is I made, like if I'm using the same quiz for period A and B, I assigned it to 2 separate rosters, so there are 2 different codes. So only the students that were on my roster would be able to use that code to get in. Now, again, it should simplify things. The fact that we're a pro school, it should make it very seamless in terms of that, that the only way that a student would be able to log in to not their class is if they were using someone else's Google, login and their account and stuff. So that should help with that confusion a little bit.
But Pete, they can get codes from other people. Like I would have Zooms and kids wouldn't get on the Zoom and then they'd pop up on my Classkick and I'd get on my iPad and be like, how'd you get the code? And I don't know. It wasn't that big of a deal last year. I think that there's going to be a lot more in place this upcoming year if we have to do like exclusively online. So I'm not as concerned about that. And we were giving a lot of grace last year, but at the end of the day, I just thought like if they got on, they get on, and like I can't be mad about what way they got there. So, but they can give it to their friends and they can still get on.
Yeah. So if you don't have it hidden, and so if you don't want to have to mess with, them checking in with you, then you don't hide it. And if they get the code, because that did happen to me once, I didn't hide it. And a student who was late getting there had asked their friend and then they were in and the same thing happened. I was like, hey, hold on, you never checked in. So they're like, oh, sorry, I got it from, Jimmy or whatever. So if you want to have more control over, them coming and going and whatever, then if you hide it, they have to have your permission to be able to join again or join at all.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're almost out of time, but if anybody has one last question or anything I can clarify, I'm happy to do so.
I do think it's a good idea to do it as like a practice round before. So like Lisa and I did it like 4 or 5 times in the classroom, like where we were in front of the kids. And so by the time we did online learning, like they knew exactly what Classkick was. So it wasn't like a big surprise or crazy new thing for them to learn. So like, if you think this is something that would be helpful, I would suggest trying to integrate it like in the first few weeks and when we're in school and in person, so that it's not like a hard thing for them to learn on their own. Like you can all just walk through it together and it's low stakes and low risk. And like, I even AirPlay my iPad onto the like TV screen and I'll show them, I'll be like, oh, look, Abby made this one mistake and everyone looks at the board and can see what I see. And then we address one mistake at the same time. And so it's just a lot easier if you can already like done a practice round before it's like an actual quiz or an actual assessment.
Yes, that's true. It could also be used for entrance tickets and exit tickets, especially with being multiple choice where you can grade it easily. I know that Rachel Ludington had said that she used it for e-learning, just when we had an occasional e-learning day during bad weather and whatever, and that she would happen to get on when a kid was working and she would start writing them notes like, hey, good morning, how can I help? And, things like that. And they were kind of freaked out that they didn't realize that she was going to be able to kind of, interact with them and watch them while they were doing it. So, it kind of makes you feel like you're not just teaching into a dark hole. It does feel like you have a little bit of interaction with them. All right. Any last questions or comments? Okay. Marianne and I did it quite a bit during e-learning. Jen Hollis has used it. Rachel Ludington's used it. I'm not sure about other departments. I know that Jen had done a professional development maybe sometime during the school year, maybe in December or January. And so some teachers may also have started using it, but I'm happy to help anybody who has questions. So once you start practicing, you have questions, let me know. Okay, thanks so much for joining, everybody.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Take care.
Thanks, Lisa.
And I'll stick around if anybody has something you want to ask me individually too.
Actually, Lisa, I'm sorry that I was
Hi,
late.
Liz.
I had a family thing that I had to take care of. But do you? I'm sure that I could just Google this and find out what the way maybe like English teachers or history teachers could use Classkick. Do you have any anecdotal stories on that?
You can literally, any quiz that you would give on paper, you could give on Classkick.
Okay.
So, you know, if it's in class practice or if it's an assessment you want to do, because you can take a PDF and convert it into a Classkick, and then the students, as they're answering questions, you can monitor them. Like if you're wanting them to use it for like vocabulary review, you know, you can set it up where it's multiple choice and they answer and it grades it as they go. But you can also be looking at their screens, be making notes to them, like, nope, try again. You know, if you don't even have them, even if they don't see with their, you know, which ones are right, which ones are wrong, you will be able to see their screen and be able to mark, okay, question 1, question 3, question 8. Those are wrong, try those again. And, you know, you're kind of giving individual help to the students, even though like maybe they're still working on that and somebody else is on page 2, you can then jump over and see that person who is on page 2 doing something else and give them feedback.
So is that, do you like to use it like in a real live class as like a formative thing so you can be aware of what they're working on and like not really a quality grade thing, and then you use it differently when it's a quiz, like a...
So yeah, so we used it actually during sophomore day of recollection, when we had, like, with our academic geometry, they're almost all sophomores, so like half of them were there one day and half of them were there another day. We did I-step practice on Classkick, so that way, you know, we had, you know, maybe half of the class was working on it on one class period, and then as they were working, and these were just working out problems, they weren't multiple choice or anything, they were just working out, and we were checking it as they were working and giving them feedback. So, you know, when you're in the classroom with them, obviously you can just say, hey, Joey, look back at slide 2, or, you know, Christina, you have an issue on problem number 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
But it just is nice to be able to give them feedback, and, you know, wait, I don't understand what you're saying. I'm like, let me just write it down on your screen, you know, and you're not running around the room trying to look at their paper and answer their question, then running somewhere else. So we thought it was really helpful for a review kind of situation. But again,
did the kids like it?
They did. They liked it a lot.
Good.
For something different. It's really very similar in that situation. Just like if you had individual whiteboards and the kids were writing out problems and holding them up for you to look at, or writing out questions or answers or whatever. It's a similar, you know, it would be similar to that. It's just virtual. So it worked really well, you know, online.
Yeah. It's so cool because, you know, some kids are real good about raising hands or being really visible to the teacher, and some are very much into hiding, and so it makes them all equally transparent to you. So,
and sometimes they're nervous about raising their hand in front of everybody, you know, whereas when they're just raising their hand virtually, you can jump over and answer a question for them without, you know, anybody even knowing. So
I want to see that baby, Lisa. Hold him up. Oh. Oh, that's awesome. Lisa, you're such a good teacher. I mean, I just love watching you guys teach, you know, and
Yeah, she's amazing.
well, you're both awesome teachers, but I just got to watch Lisa Hastings-Smith. So
we use this in summer school, and the kids picked it up really fast.
Cool.
Great. Yep. The first one was a little rough. We had 5 or 6 kids have to do it on paper pencil and take pictures. But after that, they all had it figured out. So.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, I'll let you go, Lisa. Thanks for taking the time to do this. Okay.
So Liz, if you, if there are some language arts teachers or teachers in other departments that start using it, that'd be great to share, you know, what you guys, how you're using it and all that. So.
Yeah, I saw our 2 brand new teachers who are on there, and they're English and history. So I bet they'll be on the cutting edge of, you know, getting into that. All right. Well, thanks so much. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
Good. I think it's the best one yet. You're awesome.
Bye.